So I was telling my friend about something at a party, and it occurred to me that it's probably one of the most important things that I've touched that I haven't shared um, at large in public yet. So I wanted to do that. And the crux of the thing is about the nature of human beings as learners and coming to trust your own sense of whether a learning environment is right for you. And so I have this pet theory that people have an innate sense of whether a learning environment is right for them. I think this is the sort of thing that human being actually needs to have an intuitive sense of calibration on. In the same way that we need to have a basic sense of whether we're hungry, whether we're thirsty, whether we're too hot or too cold, we need to have a sense of whether we are in over our head. Whether we're in our comfort zone or whether we're in our zone of proximal development, which is kind of the range at which you can't quite do the thing, but you can just barely manage to do the thing, or whether we're outside of that into, I think there's a term for this, but sort of the panic zone. And so I want to talk a little bit about that, which is basically, so I have this, as I said, pet theory that we have an innate sense of this, but schools basically traumatize it out of people for the most part. They teach people to disrespect their own sense of whether the learning environment is right for them, instead saying, this is what learning is, this is what a healthy learning environment is. If you don't like it, that's your problem. This is how it should be. And so people learn to distrust their own signals. Now, for me, I was usually quite ahead of whatever was happening in class. So the signals that I was getting was boredom. It was, this is not going fast enough. This is way too slow. I need more stimulation. I need more to be happening. I need more autonomy, etc. But there's another basic type of learning stress that the other half of my classmates were experiencing, or something maybe, which is, this is going too fast. Wait, I don't understand. Please slow down. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And there's something so fundamental to this experience of being in a learning environment that's expecting more from you than you're capable of, and more from you than you're capable of accessing just on the edge. There's something that seems really structural and fundamental about this. And that really connected for this friend of mine. Like, when I invoke that sense, that feeling of like, I'm not ready, please wait, I don't even know how to ask, can someone, there's something really, really fundamental about that. And and I'm not even sure what I want to say about that, except that just like, it's so important to learn to honor that sense that you have, and to not go faster than you're capable of learning. It's one thing, as I said, to be in in your zone of proximal development, where you're being pushed, but where you're rising, you're capable of rising to meet the challenge. But if you're not, then it's like, whatever it is you're learning is not the thing that you're ostensibly trying to learn. You end up learning coping mechanisms and ways of faking it, and ways of pretending, and ways of sacrificing other things that are important to you in order to meet some external short-term demand or some appearance of something. And in most situations, that's not what you want. So my principle here is, find a way to, like, the more you can take responsibility for your own learning process, and even if the people around you are trying to rush you in some way, being able to say, no, I'm actually not going to go any faster than I can go that feels right for me. The more you can do that, the better. And there are going to be some learning environments that don't accept that. And to some extent, what I would say is that learning environment is not the learning environment for you if they're not able to accept that. Now, there might be other learning environments that they don't like it, but they'll tolerate it. And then what happens is, if you make that shift, now you're holding your learning process in that context, not the environment. You're the one taking ownership for holding your learning process, and it's hard to convey exactly what that shift is, but it's something like if you imagine being at like a monastery or something like that. It's the difference between feeling like the teacher is sort of the ultimate authority on your learning process versus feeling like you are, and you're using the teacher and you're using the structure as a resource to your learning process, but you're not letting it override your own basic sense of what's right for you in your process at this moment. That's not to say that you might not let it challenge you, but you're able to recognize when the challenge is too great and say, nope, I'm stepping back. And that can be tough, like having the courage to do that, even if it means, you know, that you might end up having to leave, or having the courage to take a step back, in the context of a romantic relationship where you've gone in too deep, or a business context where you're in over your head with responsibilities and you're feeling imposter syndrome and so forth. All of that can be really difficult. And I think when you can find the courage for that, I mean, I guess even just speaking for myself, like I've had a few moments in my life of really noticing that I was in a situation where more was being demanded of me than I was capable of, and it was so healing to recognize that and honor that, and decide to take a step back. And so, I guess the core thing I want to say to you, whoever's listening to this, is basically what I said to my friend, which is just that you matter. Your learning process matters, and sometimes you may feel really overwhelmed, and it's really important to be able to listen to yourself. Yeah. And yeah, hopefully you can find a way to communicate that to the people around you, and they can respect that you're needing to go at a different pace. And ultimately it is up to each of us to be calibrated on that. Like, other people can't ultimately calibrate on that for us. Although I think it's possible to pick up on when somebody's way in over their head to some degree. But we're also good at masking it. So it's hard, like when you're in over your head, you don't want to appear like you don't know what you're doing, because that would just maybe add even more stress. So it's tough.